Yo, what's going on, YouTube? We back with another video. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, share the video. I'm gonna be locked in all year long. We drop hella content coming at you every single day. Lock in, bro. Let's get into it. We finna watch this dumbass nigga right here, bro. Bullshit, bro. Making Memphis niggas look just dumb as hell. Like
The Whopper has never tasted better, thanks to you. Because there's a new king, and it's you.
Did you lose a lot of money sports betting on DraftKings or FanDuel? You may qualify for up to $75,000.
Now, the Pooh Shiesty story is definitely worse than people think. A lot of people are talking about it right now. But a lot
on some real shit, like, why would you do some shit like this?
of the details are getting mixed up. So let me just break it down and give you the full story. So recently, rapper Pooh Shiesty was arrested in connection to a robbery and kidnapping case involving rapper Gucci Mane. And the story goes like this. On January 10, 2026, around 1 p.m., Gucci Mane flew into Dallas with members of his camp and 2 security guards for what was supposed to be a business meeting with rapper Pooh Shiesty. Pooh Shiesty had been signed to Gucci Mane's 1017 label since 2021, but at this point, he wasn't happy with the terms of his deal. So he asked Gucci to come out to Dallas with the intention of talking things through and potentially getting out of his contract. About 45 minutes later, around 1:45 p.m., they arrived at the studio, which was located inside an office building, only to realize it was still closed. So while they waited, the group stepped out, went to a nearby liquor store, grabbed some drinks and red cups, you know those red cups that rappers use to drink this thing called lean, and then came back to the building. By around 3:15 p.m., the studio finally opened. Gucci and his security went inside, just waiting for things to get started. Around this time, Pooh Shiesty's father, Lontrell Williams Sir, is seen outside the building before entering a few minutes later. And this is where things start to shift. Around 3:43 p.m., 7 more men show up. However, they don't come through the main entrance. They slip in through a side door and make their way into the studio. One of them leaves briefly, then comes back a minute later, now carrying a bag over his shoulder. At this point, what was supposed to be a normal business meeting is starting to look like something else entirely. Inside the studio, Gucci Mane and his people, including his security, are just kind of sitting there, watching a football game, completely unaware of what might be unfolding around them. Meanwhile, Pooh Shiesty steps out and gets on a phone call. From what could be overheard, it sounded like he was speaking to his probation officer, who was telling him he wasn't supposed to be out and needed to return immediately. Pooh Shiesty then agreed, but instead of leaving right away, he stayed. At one point, Gucci even tells him, they could just reschedule the meeting if the timing wasn't right, but Pooh Shiesty insists on continuing the conversation about the contract. So the two of them move into another recording room nearby to talk privately about the contract. And that's when things change. What was supposed to be a business conversation escalates fast. Inside that room, Pooh Shiesty pulls out paperwork and tells Gucci Mane, sign it, trying to force his way out of the contract. Gucci Mane refuses. And that's when something else happens. Pooh Shiesty gets visibly frustrated and the conversation turns into an argument. Then he tells rapper Big 30, which is his friend, to go grab a bag. Big 30 leaves the room and then comes back moments later with that bag. And now the situation takes a serious turn. Pooh Shiesty reaches into that bag that Big 30 brought him, pulls out an AK-style pistol, and points it directly at Gucci Mane, demanding that he signs the paperwork. At that point, Gucci complies. He's inside a studio surrounded by a bunch of dudes, outnumbered, with no real way out of the situation. And while he's signing, mind you, the gun is still pointed at him, and he's not allowed to leave. One of the guys there pulls out a phone and starts recording, making him say out loud that he's releasing Shiesty from the deal. But none of that actually matters legally, obviously, because anything signed under pressure like that doesn't hold up in court, but that's beside the point. Once the paperwork is signed, it doesn't stop there. Shiesty and the others go on to rob Gucci Mane, taking his wedding ring, his watch, his earrings, and cash right there inside the studio. They even force him to write out the date on the paperwork. At the same time, in another room, things are getting just as serious. The group turns their attention to Gucci Mane's security team, guns are drawn, and they're outnumbered. They're robbed on the spot, wallets, chains, and other valuables taken from them. One of the security guards is put in a dangerous situation where he was nearly shot during the situation. At one point, he's even grabbed from behind, choked to the point where he's close to losing consciousness while being robbed at gunpoint. Another guard has his Rolex taken, along with a Louis V bag that contained multiple high-end watches, which included AirPods and his wallet. What they didn't, however, know is that some of those stolen items had Apple AirTags attached to them. And at that point, everyone inside is surrounded, with guns pointed at him and no real way out. The goons then block the door and prevent everyone from leaving, holding them still at gunpoint. Eventually, Gucci Mane is pushed back onto the couch, and Shiesty placed the barrel of a gun to the back of one of Gucci's people and told them it's time to leave. And just like that, it's over. At around 4:48 p.m., everyone leaves the building through the east entrance. Not long after that, the situation is reported to the police. And once investigators start looking into it, things begin to line up very quickly. Surveillance footage from nearby buildings captured multiple vehicles leaving the area shortly after the robbery. A white Buick Enclave, a black Dodge Charger Hellcat, it's always a Hellcat, and a black Dodge Ram with a distinct roll bar in the back, all seen heading northbound. From there, law enforcement started digging deeper. Using license plate reader data, they're able to identify one of the key vehicles, the Hellcat, and that's when it gets more specific. The car is traced back to someone connected to the group, registered to the father of one of the individuals involved. More importantly, the same Charger had already been picked up earlier that day in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Around 2:18 p.m., it was captured on camera driving close behind a black Dodge Ram, the same type of truck later seen near the studio. And that Dodge Ram had a very specific detail, which was a roll bar that I mentioned earlier attached to the back of it, matching exactly what was seen in the surveillance footage after the robbery. At this point, it's no longer just a random incident. Investigators are now able to connect the vehicles, the timing, and the people involved, and a big part of that comes from witness statements. Along with the evidence, they start putting everything together. But here's the crazy part. As far as Pooh Shiesty, back in 2022, he was sentenced to 63 months in prison for a firearms conspiracy case, and by late 2025 he had been approved for home detention, which came with very strict conditions. He wasn't allowed to possess any weapons, he wasn't allowed to be around any gang members, right, like anybody who's carrying guns and doing all this crazy stuff. He was also required to wear an electronic monitoring device, essentially tracking his location at all times, right? So they were able to verify very easily and placed them right at the location of the incident on January 10, 2026. Investigators also pulled cell phone records and location data tied to several of the people involved, along with tracking data from the vehicles, and what they found was very important. A group of individuals connected to the situation had actually traveled together from Memphis, Tennessee to Dallas, Texas, days before everything happened. So at least 2 people in the group had ankle monitors. The investigators of this case kept on lining things up, and they were able to confirm that some of the people involved left Dallas almost immediately. The very next day, January 11, several of them taking a Greyhound bus from Dallas back to Memphis, Tennessee. And this isn't just a guess, like they contacted Greyhound, confirmed the trip. At the same time, others connected to the situation left separately, driving back from Dallas to Memphis just a couple days later. So now you have multiple people all tied to the same incident, leaving the city in different ways, but all heading back to the same place. And that movement ends up matching everything investigators had been seeing through surveillance and phone records. And investigators were also able to trace where the group was staying during all of this. After going through cell phone data and reports tied to the vehicles, they determined that several of the individuals involved were staying at a Comfort Inn Dallas from January 10 to January 11. Hotel records confirmed that multiple rooms were booked under one of their names. And when investigators review the surveillance footage from inside the hotel, it gets even more clear. They're able to spot several of the same individuals inside the building, wearing clothes that matches what was seen during the robbery earlier that day. And then here's the physical evidence, right? Investigators recover fingerprints from items left behind at the scene, including red plastic cups inside the studio, those lean cups. And then those prints are run through a national fingerprint database, and they got matches. 2 of the individuals involved are directly identified through those prints, linking them back to the same exact location where everything happened. And then here's what happened afterwards. Surveillance footage from the building shows one of the individuals leaving the scene carrying what appears to be the same Louis V bag that had just been reported stolen, but it doesn't stop there. Just a few days later, that same person posts a video on Instagram, dumb, right, wearing a Rolex that looks identical to one of the watches taken during the robbery. And this wasn't just any watch, it was the victim's watch. And the victim had already provided investigators with photos, receipts, and even the serial number. So when that video surfaces, it only adds to the evidence, and the police end up using this against them. One of them is also seen wearing a chain with 1017 on it, which was another item taken during a robbery. And honestly, the level of carelessness in this entire situation is hard to just like ignore. It's crazy. They probably didn't even care, right? I'm not here to promote any criminal activities, but I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna move like this, putting everything out on social media right after is stupid. Now, stepping back from everything that happened, the reason this situation even started in the first place was over a contract. Pooh Shiesty wanted to sit down with Gucci Mane and talk about getting out of his deal. And to be fair, that part isn't unusual. A lot of artists sign deals early on and they later realize that they're not happy with the terms. That's pretty common, right? But what makes this different is how it was handled. Because instead of going through the proper channels, authorities say it escalated into robbery and kidnapping. And here's the thing, whether people want to admit it or not, Gucci Mane has actually helped Pooh Shiesty a lot. Now sure, he already had momentum before signing with him, but at the same time, Gucci Mane has been one of those guys who's consistently given opportunities to street rappers and helped take them to another level. Now the issue is when you mix business with emotion and a street mentality, this is usually what it turns into. And it really just shows you where that kind of mindset leads. There's no real structure, no long-term thinking. And once that starts bleeding into business situations, things get out of control fast. And I don't really understand trying to force someone to sign a contract at gunpoint. Like, there's no real logic behind it. But then again, this wasn't about logic. And now look at the situation. Authorities are saying that if convicted, Pooh Shiesty and everyone involved could be facing up to life in prison. And this happened in Texas. And if you know anything about Texas, you know that they don't play. They hand out football numbers like candy and Halloween. We've already seen this with cases like the TK case, where he wasn't even the shooter in one of those cases and still ended up with 55 years in prison. And in another case where he was actually the shooter, he got 80 years in prison. That same system is what this situation is now falling under. And honestly, this should be a lesson, not just for Gucci Mane, not just for artists in hip-hop, but for everybody. You can't do business with people who move and think like this. Because once things get emotional, once that mindset takes over, the YN mindset, it can turn into something way bigger than it ever needed to be. Gucci Mane could have easily gotten killed in that situation. He's very lucky he even made it out of there, honestly. Because we all know how fast things can change when you got a group of YNs with guns acting off emotion. We've seen what kind of damage they can do. If you made it this far, drop a like on this video and of course subscribe if you're new here. Nice to meet you. And
probably wish he did kill him.
Honestly, this is one of those very foolish stories that I don't know what to say about. This is just a foolish story, like super foolish. Anyway, what do you guys think about this story? Y'all let me know in the comment section below and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace, I'm out.
2 p.m. still works great. We'll put our best guy in the job.
Stop being stuck on stupid. Don't be stuck on stupid. That's what my dad always taught me. He told me, don't be stuck on stupid, bro. Get out that dumb ass shit. Don't be stuck on stupid, bro.